Obviously, karaoke is the magic word to make a Bengal appear. Hello, Zeus. Hi, welcome to the Mammoth Tech Show. I'm Jeff, and you may remember this. It's my old Amiga 1200. Honestly, it's an Amiga 1200. It's just cosplaying as a 90s tower PC. In the video we did on this, I talked about my experience with the Amiga 1200. We opened it up and had a look inside, and then we tested it to see if it still worked. You seem to enjoy that video, so we're going to do this again, but with something slightly more exotic. This is my Commodore CDTV, and in this video I'll be talking about this machine, my history with it, then we'll take a look at it, have a look inside it, and then see if it still works. So, let's get on with that. Released in 1991, Commodore CDTV was considerably different to the previous Amiga computers that Commodore had released up to that point. Most notably, that it didn't look remotely like a computer. Looking at this now, this most closely resembles a DVD player. And there's that name, CDTV. And there's a connection between the two, because this idea of CDTV, compact disc television, was the idea that Commodore were trying to get across with the name. In actual fact, CDTV means Commodore's Dynamic Total Vision, which doesn't really mean a lot, but it gets across the idea of compact disc television, which was the idea they were trying to project. Clearly, the home that this was intended for was the living room, not the back bedroom or the spare room or any of the other places that home computers normally lurk. This would take pride of place in the sitting room underneath the big TV. But what about those Amiga origins? Well, looking at the box, you don't even see the words Amiga. However, this definitely is an Amiga, and a lot of people will tell you that this is really just an Amiga 500, just in a fancy box. But that's not strictly true. Although it does have the original processor and custom chipset that came with the original line of Amiga computers, you could say that about a lot of Amigas, like the 2000 or the 1500, but nobody ever says that the Amiga 2000 is just an Amiga 500 in a different box. But for some reason people always say that about the CDTV. But there are some differences in the specs between this and a basic Amiga 500, most notably the memory. This has 1 megabyte of RAM, whereas the original 500 had just 512K. And in actual fact, this is a pretty expandable computer if we have a look around the back. A lot of the ports are the same as those you'd find on a normal Amiga, but there are a couple that you wouldn't normally find, like MIDI for example. And there's a normal power inlet. None of you having to have a big power brick underneath the desk like you would with an Amiga 500. No, the power is built in. So although it does have some similarities with the Amiga 500, it is a completely custom board inside here, and we'll take a look at that in a bit. Of course, the principal difference is that CD drive there. And if you think it looks a little unusual, not the normal sort of tray loading CD drive that you would normally expect, that's because it isn't. It used these caddies. The idea with the CD caddy is that you open it up, put the CD inside it, close it up, and then stick that cartridge-like inside the drive. It's commonly thought that CD caddies were there as just a method of protecting the CD so that it didn't get damaged whilst handling. However, I remember at the time being told something entirely different. As far as I understood it, CD drives were slightly more finicky about the data they were reading than a normal CD drive. A normal audio CD has a lot of error checking and redundancy to mean that if it skipped a bit of data, it wouldn't be a problem. But that's not so the case with a CD-ROM. When you put a CD inside a caddy, you can see we have the guide walls around the edge, and as far as I know, this holds the CD more firmly in place. So rather than it just sitting on the spindle in the middle and wobbling around a bit, being held within the caddy means that the CD wobbles less, meaning that there's less chance of data loss. Obviously, as CD drives improved, this was much less of an issue, and we'd eventually get normal tray loading and slot loading eventually. But for these early CD-ROMs, I think the data loss issue was the reason why they went for these CD caddies. As I said, the living room was the intended home for this beast, and obviously if it's sitting there under the TV, you're not going to be able to use your normal mouse and keyboard to control it. And so we have this, a rather unique looking controller which appears to have been the offspring of a NES controller and a normal CD player controller. And surprisingly, it does work very well, and even has 2 buttons, which is one more than most Amiga controllers have. The main unit on its own came in at £500, which was 100 more than an Amiga 500, but if you think about it, it did have more memory and the obviously more expensive CD-ROM drive rather than the old floppy drive that the 500 has. It was also available in an upgraded deluxe pack, which contained the CDTV obviously, plus a keyboard, a floppy disk drive and a mouse, all in matching black. And I believe that was about £100 more, and that was the pack that I went for. I have here some period marketing bumps that I picked up when I bought the machine a while ago and have fortunately kept hold of. We have your questions answered and a price list which we'll have a look at, and best of all we have this rather lovely marketing brochure which folds out fully and gives us all the details we could ever desire about the CDTV. This brochure here is really nice. It's wonderfully illustrated, and it goes back to the time when Commodore did really good manuals, like the original VIC-20 manual. It really tells you everything you need to know about the machine, explains the concept, gives you fun little illustrations. The front page explains the concept of the device in one nice illustration. You have the whole family and the TV with the CDTV underneath it, and everyone is having a lot of fun. And as we continue inside, the dog sort of demonstrates what each section represents, if it's music or sports or exploration or whatever. The dog's there with a little costume to make it look a lot friendlier and basically ease you into this weird idea that probably a lot of people weren't particularly familiar with. Let's read a bit and get an idea of Commodore's philosophy behind this. Are you bored with the TV? Do you yearn for something that's a little more interesting? Something new, which stimulates the old grey matter and indulges your desire to be entertained? Enter the Commodore CDTV, the world's first advanced learning and entertainment system which plugs straight into your television. Based on the familiar compact disc player, the CDTV offers a rich set of information and communication capabilities. In its simplest form, it brings together pictures, words and sounds in a new format and joins them together by engaging and involving the user in a fascinating world of audio-visual challenge and experience. In addition, by using the extremely simple to operate infrared remote control as your guide, CDTV applications are simply more sophisticated, challenging and informative than any other form of media. We have some standout quotes at the side as well. A CDTV application is like travelling on a journey. Maybe you've always longed to be an explorer, or perhaps a detective for the day. And here it mentions the CD plus G compatibility. CD plus G is CD plus graphics. Pretty simple graphics, but they allow you to add lyrics and such like, and were usually used for karaoke. Commodore are really trying to get across the multimedia idea here. Watch it like a film, read it like a book, hear it for real. This leaflet here is basically an FAQ for the CDTV, and it covers everything from what CDTV means all the way to information about MIDI. We have a software brochure here, and interestingly it shows it as an Amiga. We have all the different types of software, including entertainment, education and reference. So what was it like actually owning one at the time? Well, I have to say that it turned out very well. The whole concept of being a machine that could be in the living room, that the whole family could use, in the case of our family, worked very well. And everyone really liked using it. Obviously I was the principal user, but my dad also enjoyed using it, and thanks to the infrared remote control, he could sit back on his normal armchair and enjoy playing titles, not just CDTV titles, but Amiga games such as Settlers, which he enjoyed playing a lot in the comfort of the living room. As a family, we got a lot of enjoyment out of the CDTV and enjoyed using titles like SimCity. Although the CDTV version of SimCity has not the greatest reputation, we haven't actually played any other versions and it seemed really good. We played SimCity on CDTV for hours and hours. One of my favourite CDTV games was The Case of the Cautious Condor. Nowadays you'd probably call it a motion comic. There were beautiful illustrations of this 30s era adventure where you went aboard a giant seaplane taking its maiden voyage, and obviously there's a murder. You were able to explore this giant luxurious airship and interview people and try and find who done it. I can remember never actually completing it, but the atmosphere was wonderful and I always enjoyed having another go. There were other titles, like a NASA themed title which contained a lot of archived videos, and you could look up information about different NASA space launches and find out information and look at videos from that. And this was really interesting, although the video coming from this thing, seeing as this is a single speed drive, was only partial screen. It only took up a small amount of the screen and was about 10 or 15 frames a second. But still, the novelty value of being able to just select a video and it just play, even though it wasn't full screen, it was really, the novelty value was there for the time. And if you ever wondered where FMV, the phrase FMV, comes from, it comes from those days, because with that single speed drive you couldn't have a full screen of picture running at a normal frame rate. You either had to shrink down the size of the video or run it at a slower frame rate, or probably both. That's where the FMV acronym comes from. It stands for full motion, i.e. 25 to 30 frames a second, full screen, i.e. the entire screen, video. FMV was the gold standard that a lot of these machines, including Philips CDI, was going for, but very few of them actually managed it without the use of an expensive MPEG decoder card. This predated the video CD market by quite a while, and is another demonstration of how far ahead of the curve this thing was. But you'll often find FMV used to describe the small video window running at a slow frame rate that you saw in FMV games like Night Trap. But generally speaking, those aren't FMV because they're not full motion and they're not full screen. And if it isn't full motion and full screen, it's not FMV. Because I had the deluxe pack of this with the keyboard and the floppy disk drive, I was also able to use normal Amiga games. So this did get a great deal of use. Plus, of course, you could use it to play normal audio CDs. I must say I was a very happy CDTV user. It's really a shame this was so far ahead of the market. If you look like 10 years forward, you have DVD players and people wanting to look up large amounts of information, conveniently not having to go to a computer to do it. And this had all that, but some of the limitations, like the fact that it couldn't run proper full FMV, and also the specs were beginning to look their age a bit by then. Just a year or so later, we get the new AGA chipset. In fact, it debuted with the Amiga 3000 the year that this was released. But of course, at the time, putting that hardware in this would have made it prohibitively expensive. If this had come a couple of years later with a better chipset, the ability to play full motion video, and a nice convenient CD tray loader, then it would probably have had a lot more success. By then, people were much more used to the concept of multimedia and wouldn't have to have it explained in admittedly very nice brochures. And indeed, Commodore did just that. Although the machine didn't bear any resemblance to that, it was, in fact, the CD32. However, that was a pure gaming machine, and of course that meant it had to go up against the big name game console rivals. Having those CD32 specs in a form factor like this, the living room friendly machine that could play games but could also entertain the whole family with music and movies and reference material, would probably have been quite a unique prospect. And who knows, maybe in some parallel universe that did happen. Unfortunately, the CDTV did not succeed. It was trying to create a market that was about 5 or 10 years at least in the future. Maybe a bigger company could have made it happen, but Commodore gave it a good go, and this is a fine machine and I enjoyed it a lot. So let's have a look inside here. And there's a little bit of extra interest inside here than normal, because I had this upgraded with a memory expansion at the time. It was actually not done by myself, so I don't really know what it looked like. So this will be quite interesting for me as well. I also can't remember how much it was. I think it was 1 meg, possibly. So we'll open this up, have a look at the inside, have a look at that memory expansion, and we'll also see if any of the capacitors in here have suffered the fate of a lot of 90s electronics and gone bad. Let's get this thing open and look inside. let's get this top off. And there we go. And the innards of the CDTV are revealed. Including the memory expansion, which piggybacks on the CPU socket. And this does not look like good news. That looks like a capacitor that has just completely exploded everywhere, leaked all over the place. This component has exploded quite spectacularly, even leaving a crater on the roof of the CDTV's case. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be rounding out this episode with a triumphant powering on of the machine. It wouldn't be safe to try to power this on. This needs some serious TLC. And unfortunately, I'm just not qualified to perform those sort of cleanups or repairs. So we'll have to look at our options for what we can do, how we can salvage this poor little chap. He did us proud back in the early 90s. So, you know, we should look after him, see if we can salvage him. But yes, that's an unfortunately downbeat note to end on, but you know, not all of these things can be magical. It just works when you switch it on like the old 1200 was. Yeah, this is basically the other end of the spectrum, unfortunately. But that's the thing with retro computers, you just don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes until you just open a box and find a whole lot of horrible crud. But at least it looks like it's only located in one area. It's not like there was a lot of liquid damage. It's covered half the board or something like that. It's just located in one area and looks like just one component that's gone bad. Gone very bad, but just looks like one that's gone bad. So if you have any suggestions on what we can do to resurrect our old CDTV, please let us know in the details. I would love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed the show anyway, please give us a like. And if you'd like to find out what happens next with this, subscribe. And in a future episode, we will hopefully come back to this. Yes, let us know what you would do in the comments. And yeah, the more suggestions and advice we get, the quicker we can get this guy back on his feet again. But anyway, that's going to be it for the minute, I'm afraid. Until next time, I've been Jeff. This has been a sadly very sickly CDTV. This has been the Mammoth Tech Show, and you've been very kind to watch. Thank you very much.